We're recording our voices.
We're recording our voices. I have a hip hop lore question for you.
All right, starting strong.
What why did A Tribe Called Quest not win versus Wu-Tang Clan? If that makes sense. Like,
I mean,
like Wu-Tang Clan, and then after Wu-Tang Clan, like everybody was like gangsta rap, right? If I'm remembering my timeline correctly. But then A Tribe Called Quest wasn't really gangsta rap, and then it's like later on, like their style of rap has become more important or more common or more popular, maybe.
I don't know. That's a good question. I know I've realized recently there's so much hip hop history that I don't know. Like, I technically have a degree, I think, in hip hop. I say I think because I don't have a physical piece of paper. I just, like, when I signed up for classes, they told me I was minoring in hip hop.
Yeah.
So I believed them. But I don't actually know much about hip hop outside of the specific classes I took. But my understanding is it's basically like the late 80s was gangster rap with like Ice-T, who was like, I kill police. And just like, holy shit, that's new, you know? That's like different from the hibbity hip hop type of stuff. And then, I don't know, I'm assuming it's the same reason that we still like that stuff today, just because we like love violence so much that someone with kind of more of like a flavory type, instrumental type, wavy type rapping is not necessarily like, it's not going to be cool at first. Not as cool as I kill police. That grabs attention.
That does, certainly does.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I guess that's why. And like you were just saying before with learning how Kanye made it more like mainstream to be not a dude who shoots people.
Yeah.
In like 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the whole thing with like 50 Cent. Did the video that you did the video that you watch cover the 50 Cent Kanye stuff in like 2007? Graduation versus Curtis?
No. It again, the thing I watched was more like Kanye's effect on people of color, specifically like men, cishet men of color. But he really didn't talk about like the music at all, or like the beefs internally. He did talk about like Jay-Z not really wanting Kanye in the beginning, and then like Kanye just kind of like forced his way in to like make it big.
He's so good, basically.
Yeah.
Well,
with The Wire.
Through the Wire.
Yeah, which was like this man was in a car accident and rapped while he was recovering in like facial reconstruction surgery. I was like, God damn. That's great.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that the like specifically like one type of thing winning over the other, like you said, why didn't A Tribe Called Quest win? Well, the 50 Cent Kanye thing in 2007 was kind of Kanye winning, because obviously 50 Cent was kind of the, you know, he was like 5 years into his run of being like the most popular gangster rapper like ever, and that was the sound. It was all like violence. It was all like it was all like whatever. Like basically West Side Gun, what he does today on Griselda music, but like it all comes around whatever back eventually. But in that time, 50 Cent was the guy. Kanye, his first two albums had sold pretty well, really well. But he was this like new sound. So in 2007, it was all kind of coming up to this thing of like Kanye, the underdog, and then 50 Cent, the kind of like established legend. And I think it was the front of Rolling Stone, where there's like this the cover of it was like their two faces, and they were face to face, and it was like made up. It wasn't real tension. It wasn't real whatever. And I think I remember hearing somewhere that they were both on the same record label at the time. So it's like it's one person profiting off of this feud, right? But anyway. It's a long story, whatever. But Kanye outsold 50 Cent. That was when that genre won and like took over, and kind of 50 Cent kind of became irrelevant after that.
I see.
Yeah.
But you said like Griselda records are kind of like bringing that back, though.
We like the Benny the Butcher stuff. People still like hearing like, and that's different. Like 50 Cent was more like poppy than Griselda is or whatever. But I'm just saying like the violent stuff. People will always love violence. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay.
We should just fight on this podcast. People love violence.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
Secretly, I do like yearn for when people start making up that like we don't get along or something. We talked about this a couple of times, but like I'd love like a Reddit post. And it's like, Yazeed and Joseph, did you see them? They didn't laugh at each other's jokes or something. Like,
you see Joseph get smacked by Yazeed? I think Yazeed doesn't like. Just make it real obvious for him.
I'm trying to think like what it would take for me to slap somebody.
Yeah, slapping someone is just disrespectful. Slapping someone is probably worse than just like squaring up. It's like just rude.
Well, in terms of like dishonor, yeah, but like damage, I'd rather get slapped than punch in the face. Less likely to lose a tooth, break a nose, you know.
A slap can fuck you up real good. I don't know, dude. I've seen those like slap competitions where they get like a 900-pound truck man to just like destroy you, make your soul leave your body.
Did you watch? I think it was over the break, but there was the chess boxing thing.
Oh,
by Ludwig.
No, but I know I did a thing on YouTube, and he had where he put a thing in a guy's butt for the chess boxing. No, have I lost you? There's a guy on. I sent you the I did a thing guy on YouTube.
Oh, there is the I did a thing guy.
Yeah, he does like weird engineering shit,
yeah,
like trolley engineering shit.
Yeah,
and yeah, he did this like whatever chess boxing thing that happened recently. He was like there, but I have no idea like what the event was or who was running it. I just watched this guy's video.
Oh yeah, Ludwig was doing it. He did chess boxing, but then he did slap chess as well. And when they were doing that, they didn't put a cotton ball in their ear. And then Charlie Moist Critical or Penguins, whatever.
Yeah.
He told them later like you could have burst your eardrums because you didn't have the little cotton ball and you can like cause like a pressure buildup.
Oh, weird.
And you can just like boop and pop someone's eardrum.
Jeez.
Which I was like, God damn. It's crazy.
That's like one of the weird things about modern like boxing or whatever. People will argue boxing was boring, boxing is on its way out, so why not just have these like amateurs who are just famous for other things just box?
Yeah.
Like that's a horrible fucking idea. Like boxing is not just like a game. I don't know.
I think it's because punching somebody isn't really that. I have to figure out what I want with this. Punching somebody, if you're not trained, is normally not fatal. Like it's really hard to like really hurt somebody with your hands, like legitimately. Your upper body's just not strong enough, and so people who are really well trained in boxing, like they get their whole body into it, and it's like that's why they can hit so hard. But like an amateur boxer, like they don't know. Well, most of them don't even know what they're doing. They get gassed out after like the first 2 to 3 minutes. So it's like it's probably more safe for them. It's more spectacle.
Yeah, but if you're like really into the sport and like the art of boxing, seeing a bunch of fucks just mess it up is not. I think I'd rather just like see it die.
Yeah, it is a little bit tough. I will say when they did the creator clash with iDubbbz and Dr. whatever, that was actually like I watched quite a bit of boxing when I was growing up because my grandfather's really into it. But I wouldn't say they were like elite tier, but they were better than basically any of the other creative boxers that I saw. Like they both had put in a significant amount of training, and like the Doctor had been training for years, and iDubbbz really went into it. So
yeah. I remember him getting ripped. He was not very...
Yeah, dude was jacked. Apparently he's going to do it again. It's just not stop training. Like, I guess he's, like, just very... I forget why he's so into boxing, but, yeah.
We should enter, dude. We should go for it. Me and you against each other.
That's a tough sell. I don't know if I could hurt you.
home gamer against home gamer.
The home game committee.
The home...
Violence.
Committee of violence.
I was trying to figure out a way of making that clever, but I was just like, I don't know how to do this.
I like committee of violence. That's my dream job, wherever it is. Okay, do you want to talk about home game stuff, or do you want to talk about you technically being better than me in Neon White, or do you want to talk about your life, or what do you want to talk about?
Let me talk about Neon White,
yeah,
and then we can get into home game stuff. So you see, a while ago now, Joseph had played Neon White, and then recently I picked up Neon White. If you don't know what Neon White is, it's like this it's a time trial shooter is how I would describe it, where like every level you have how long it's taken you to beat this level, and every level is like normally quite short. The longest level might be like 2 minutes, maybe, probably shorter than that.
There's some bosses that are like 4. At least for me, I'm slow. Yeah, that's kind of the point of this whole thing.
Garbage. Yeah. And Joseph. Anyway, I started playing, and I saw Joseph's times on there, so I started to like beat Joseph's times, and we talked a little bit of shit talk, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna really commit to this, and so I have been absolutely crushing Joseph's times, and now we're at the point where on aggregate, like across all of the levels, I think it's like 97 levels or something like that, I am 3 minutes faster than Joseph almost. overall. It's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I didn't even really care about it anyway, dude. I mean, it was kind of what honestly, you should be kind of like embarrassed that you care so much.
Oh, I should also mention this. The one time that Joseph came back to beat my time, he couldn't out of his own skill, and instead had to look it up like a little bitch is all I'm gonna say. You know what I mean?
I had to look it up because I forget the level. There was a specific name for it, but what you had to have done to get the time that you got, you had to know something that I didn't know. I was like moving, and the thing about the game is there's no sprint or whatever. It's just like you move at a constant speed. It's all about like your like micro interactions with the world and stuff like that really change your time. And so I was basically moving at peak performance. In my head, I was missing something because you were still like a full, like maybe 2/3 of a second faster. And so I had to YouTube it because I really hate losing. One of my great regrets in life is I had an undefeated record on Def Jam Fight for New York on my GameCube on my local save, and my friends would come over and I would always beat them. And I had an undefeated record. I was like 194-0. And one time my friend came over and he beat me fair and square, and like a little bitch, I turned off the GameCube before it registered the loss. And it's like a character flaw of mine to like I really have to get over this like absolute fear of losing.
Well, you're gonna lose in Neon White because if I'm beating your times without looking anything up, all I want to say is that if I start looking things up, it's kind of over for you. I'm
gonna quit this side project just to fucking do it full time to destroy
I've been talking mad shit. The funniest thing about this whole thing is that I found out that I didn't have a way of talking shit, and so I just started pulling from like YouTube videos I saw where they talk shit. And Jay said I talk shit like Zoomers do in Valorant. Is literally what he told me.
You just floss in front of me for like a minute.
I told him that someone would have to catch these L's.
Oh my god.
And JC was like, Yazeed, shut up.
Yeah.
I don't talk smack normally, but I feel like I can on this game.
I was talking some trash, and then when I really committed, it was basically one afternoon where I went through and blew away half your scores and fucking smoked you like a roast. But I could go back for that second half, dude, and I could finish the job, dude.
You will literally be running the same level for hours.
I'm about to wrap you in foil. I'm about to throw you in for the second round, dude. Get you nice and fucking tender.
Joseph and I were talking about this earlier, and it's fun because Joseph and I have both beat the game at this point. That like it's just going back and beating levels. We have a friend I have a friend, but anyway, he's only progressing when he's beaten every time that I have. So he's only on chapter 3 right now out of 12 and has been playing that game for a long time. So I don't even know when or if he's going to actually beat that game, because by the time he beats that game, I might have just quit.
Yeah. That's the thing I do too, where it's like in any kind of arcadey type game, high score type game. I just had this with a game I was playing called Roller Drone. I was just telling you about before the podcast. But you know, when you're playing through a game the first time, it's like, okay, well, this level could have challenges, it could have high scores and whatever. And if I will always get stuck on like trying to 3-star or whatever 5-star a level. And yeah, it's like a huge waste of time and a bad way to play a game the first time, but I do it every time. It's the only way I can be.
I just figured out eventually I'd pace you, and I did.
Yeah. I'll get back to it though. I don't know. I haven't played it, I think, since I first beat all your scores. So,
yeah. Don't worry. Take your time.
All right. And then you have no home game stuff because you don't. You don't fucking care
too much. I do care. I do care. Listen, this is like some real shit. I realized during the vacation that I was kind of burnt out.
Totally.
I was like, I don't want to do anything that requires brain power.
Yeah.
So I ended up playing like just comical levels of video games and taking naps. Like it was like high school for me. This long break for me.
It sounds great. Your daily schedule sounds great.
Yeah.
This vacation thing.
It was a good vacation. Yeah. I think that after day 2 of the vacation was right, because I wrote down like a laundry list of things that I needed to do over the break. And on day 2 of it, I was like, fuck, this is just not going to happen. Like, I'm just going to have to choose the things that I actually do, and the things that I'm just not going to do. And I was like coding, because I was like, I'm going to get ahead on work. I'm like, I'm going to get ahead on like another project that I was working on. It's like, I'm going to get ahead on Homegames. Like, it's going to be sick. And then I was like, I just have no drive to turn on a computer to type on.
Totally. Yeah, I was just fucking around. I know you care.
You're good.
But the same thing happened to me, where it's like I had a 2-week vacation, a little over 2-week vacation, and I had the same thing where I was like, I can't think about computers. I really can't, like, basically knowing that this is the last winter break I have before kind of like
super busy.
Or I just mean before we kind of release this and go into this next phase of whatever this is, because it's pretty close. And so so I was just looking at it like that, thinking, oh, I can't touch a computer. But then after about 4 or 5 days of vacation, I'm just like, man, what the fuck? Like, what am I supposed to do? You know, I had beaten, like, one of my goals for the year was to beat Elden Ring, and I had done that just before vacation. So then it was like, well, it's like you're saving up this end of year thing to do, and then you just have all this time. So then after a few days of just doing a whole lot of nothing, I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to go super incredibly hard on Homegames. Wasn't even that incredibly hard, but I got like a bunch of shit done.
You did. It's true.
I just showed it to you before, and there's a lot more bugs than I thought. But once I fix those, we're basically done.
Hell yeah. You should. I saw you made a GitHub issue.
Oh yeah, I made a few.
Hell yeah.
I resolved a few. Let's
go. I saw that too. Yeah, I basically just watched that roll in while I was like, damn, dude, I should probably get in on that. And then I was just playing Neon White instead.
That's fine.
It's just like, I beat Joseph's.
Well, it's funny too, because so like I've mentioned before, but we have a lint config. So we, for people who don't know what a linter is, it's basically just like a style formatter rules for your code. And so I have these lint configs, and I applied them to a few of the different projects, like this auto fix, just to fix spacing stuff. Anything manual I would leave for later, but just doing all this lint stuff. And then I set up GitHub branch protection rules. So I renamed all of our branches from master to main. You're welcome, Yazeed.
Thank you.
And then I added rules. So it's like, you can't delete this branch. You can't push without a pull request. You can't whatever. All these rules that me, like the admin, makes on this repo. And then immediately after, I bypassed all the rules manually to push all my shit through.
I saw that too.
Because I was like, well, on Steam it says this fucking guy's playing Neon White. Fuck this dude.
No, listen, you could have been like, you absolute fucking savage. Read this code and tell me it looks good. Sometimes I need to push to not be so lazy.
It's not even that. It's like, I probably mentioned this probably 3 times already, but okay, right now, like I said, it's feature complete. After everything I've worked on over this thing, I have every component that we need. Some of it's not as good as it should be, or a little bit buggy or whatever, but everything that needs to be there is pretty much where it is, and it's there. So I guess you would call this an alpha, right?
Hey.
So like, feature. I don't know, computer words, but fuck. What was my point?
Computer words.
This is an alpha.
It's feature complete.
Oh, right. So one of the things is, again, you're going to win Yazeed, but one of the things is going through and converting everything to TypeScript. But instead of doing it kind of all in one go, I want to do it repo by repo, so we can start with just Homegames Web, or just Homegames, or just Squish, or just whatever. And we have all of your old TypeScript stuff that you did. I'll kind of exhume that, bring it back from the dead, and then I'll kind of add my changes or anything that I need to add to it, or, kind of rebasing off of all the updates that we've added recently or over the past year or so. Yeah. And those are the ones that you can review. Like, we can actually, like, it's like, hey, you can see what it was before, but this is the restructured, more clean, easy to read version of it in TypeScript, piece by piece. And yeah, with that, basically, that'll be us finalizing everything as we go. Kind of like the last fixes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say also about TypeScript updates is that you don't have to convert everything all at once to
just pieces.
Yeah, we could just do like pieces. So like core, we could break that down by like folder or anything like that, however we want to break it down. So just a little smaller, more digestible. Because then the other thing we're going to run into is that when you do the TypeScript conversion, because you're getting rid of a JS file and you're creating a TS file, it doesn't do one-to-one comparison in GitHub. It's like basically that's like you got rid of a file and created a new file. So the like cross-file comparison is going to be enormous.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to think about too. But yeah, I mean, however we end up doing it, I'm secretly pleased to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just makes sense at this point or whatever. My thinking is if we're going to go back through all this code that we have and fix bugs kind of across the board, looking at all this system end to end and say this piece, whatever, like every single thing, then it makes sense when you're making massive structural changes to also add this TypeScript stuff to just kind of make it simpler to reason about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to do that. And I think the biggest question that I have and that I've always had is incorporating TypeScript into the build process, getting the thing where it's like we have a system that can take a GitHub commit, automatically run like npm install, and then like basically make binaries out of this stuff. It's an old system I built that I don't think we use anymore. Mm-hmm. But in a perfect world, every time we submit a new commit, we get a new build. It's available on the website. And for that to happen, we need to basically have an automated thing that has TypeScript like on the machine, runs the TypeScript stuff, and then pulls only the JS output into the binary. Like there's going to be changes to it, is my point. So that'll probably be the hardest besides the actual just like, step-by-step part of converting things to TypeScript. But
I think the hook thing might not be as bad. I'm trying to remember exactly how you do that in GitHub, but with the way that the hooks are set up, I think you can make like an HTTPS request or like a XHR request.
Like an event.
Yeah, like you can just like post a message basically. It's like the hook can be like once on commit, like on main getting a new commit, it makes that request at the end. So it's like it does all of its stuff and it makes a request to the service that actually like generates those binaries and puts it where it needs to go.
That'd be cool.
And so I think that that won't be too bad. I don't remember. I haven't done that yet anywhere, but I'm pretty sure we can figure out a way of doing that.
Well, the existing one just polls. It'll just look at the GitHub API every like minute and just look at the most recent commit. And if it isn't what it last saw, it'll build.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think that maybe switching that so that it runs against the hook, so it just has like an open endpoint that it can get hit to.
Yeah.
And the reason I think that you can do that is because that's how you run like Circle CI or Travis CI is like you fire off these things and you just let that happen. There has to be a way to say like, just make this request. Like I don't care about the response because I think it might just be in the YAML file or something. But anyway, yeah, we can cross that bridge when we get to that part. Once we have like everything in TypeScript, or at least like some guts of it in TypeScript. We can start to like cross the bridge.
Yeah, and then I'll just do it like manually, and once I can get it manually in a script or whatever, then I can just put that onto a server somewhere, just doing that. So it should be fine, but it's just one of what feels like 1,000 little things that we have to do before, like, I don't know, July 1st. Let's just say July 1st, same as last year, but last year I think it was for the, like, basically end-to-end, you can publish something, but, like, if you do, you need to fucking talk to us because God help you if you're going to try to use the system.
I was also going to say, I wonder how much of it can be pulled off into. I assume like a lot of your stuff, so I'm not trying to like interject where I can. No. But shit. Basically, like my thinking was that maybe, like some of it can just be like part of. Like I work on an open source project also, like for work, like get paid to do this, but we're like the stewards of that open source project. And like there's a person who's like on call, but really what that means is that they deploy. And it's like, maybe it's just like we take turns and like, it's your turn this week, or, it's like, it's your turn like over the next 2 weeks. It's like we make commits or whatever, or basically like in between podcasts. Like podcasts can be like the end and then like the next person takes over and like you're in charge of like building the binaries when they need to be built and stuff like that. Getting that stuff like sorted out. And I think that might take off some of the like burden of getting all of this code written between now and when we're gonna hit the go button.
Well, I think I haven't touched our existing automated build stuff, the one that polls every minute.
Yeah,
I haven't checked that in a while, but the guts are still relatively the same. It is download code, verify code, whatever. The steps are the same. The only new thing is going to be this copy, run TypeScript process stuff, and then get the JS out and then use that instead of the original source.
Yeah.
Which is just a small change, but it's just, like I said, it's like a list of changes and a small change, or it's just a small change on a list of small changes that has become so large, it's like kind of impossible to whatever, but it's on there somewhere. We'll get to it. Like, the way I see it is over the next 6 months, I'm going to be going across, like I said, every part of this system. And I think one of the things I want to look into, it's a note on here, but I think it'd be cool for me to self-host some of this stuff, or at least make it self-hostable, not necessarily replacing our AWS deployment of all of our services, because that's pretty solid. But in order to make this thing more sustainable, because the AWS cost to me personally, like, this is not an LLC with like deductions or taxes and losses and shit. This is just me paying for a hobby. Yeah. It's not super sustainable to keep paying for this fucking every month if it's all running on AWS, especially if I'm going to be like an adult.
Fair.
Like, just having this fat ass expense on my thing every month is like not realistic. So at first, just basically taking each of our services, right? And this is a big thing where a big part of this project to me is I want to make it so someone else can take all of this code and like keep doing something with it, or like make it a toy, or make it a whatever for you and your family, or you and your friends, or whatever you want to do. But being able to take the code and then do stuff with it doesn't really work when we have these centralized services that we own, where it's like assets.homegames.io. That's me. If I die, that shit's broken.
Yeah.
No one has access to it. I mean, whatever. So just thinking, okay, well, I need to make it so if I wanted to, this is a big thing too. Amazon could shut down my personal account anytime they want to.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And I would just be a victim of losing all of my infrastructure. Yeah. So in order to kind of like fight against that, just having the ability to run this myself and say, okay, well, if I'm not, just a simple config, if I'm not talking to assets.homegames.io, maybe I'm talking to my website.yazeed.com. And it also helps us build trust, because if we're saying, okay, you don't need to trust us, you don't need to sign up for an account on our website, you don't need to do anything, take our code, run our code on your own shit, like, it's all just here. Like, it is what it is, like very upfront, like just whatever. Yeah. But just being able to replace all the shit that we've built in our AWS infrastructure with something else. And then one day in the future, moving off our infrastructure. So landlord might point to my home server that I'm actually running myself. Yeah. Because that's cheaper for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that sounds like something like Terraform.
Yeah, but that's like a whole other project. And I mean, at the end of the day, if... our current thing in AWS is that we have over prepared. We have ECS tasks like with infinite scalability and fucking all this infrastructure allocated, or not allocated, but potentially whatever. We can handle stuff, which comes at a cost to me when we don't even have like traffic that would take 10% of those resources. Yeah. So then if I just have my thing running manually, like, it could just be me doing a shitty version of it. I don't need like to overthink and like over design my shit to just be like a one-click template thing engine. Like, I don't need to do all that stuff yet. It could just be get it working, have it enough to be up and running and workable, and not cost me like hundreds of dollars a month. Yeah. That makes sense. So yeah, that's just like one of the things I've been thinking, and it's just like I said, one of the big things about this project for me is just me learning stuff and me self-hosting. Just any part of our server. It wouldn't be our auth. I don't want to store user shit. Yeah. I don't want any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to store user files. I'll keep that in Amazon. But little stuff like just the microservices, some of the microservices, or like our builder, the thing I was just talking about that pulls, that can easily be run on my own server. I don't need an EC2 instance for that, which I currently have for. So stuff like that to make this more sustainable, which I guess talking about sustainability, this is one of my last bullet points I wanted to mention later. But there's just like, there's changes in our, like, I don't know, my life. Yeah. Things are happening life-wise that are, I don't know. It's even in the past 5 years, right? Like, I started this side project 5 years ago by myself. We've been doing this for like almost a little over 3 years on the podcast. Oh. Fucking crazy, right? Yeah, I know. We started it in September 2019. God damn. And so thinking, okay, well, at that time I was an adult. I had responsibilities, bills, shit to do. But at this point, years later, I'm much more of an adult, and I didn't realize that there would be progression of that. I thought once I was like 22, that was basically it. But that's not the case. So basically, just to make this whole thing simple, or not simple, just doable for us, we're going to do the podcast once a month, because as we're closer to feature complete on Homegames, the like active development stuff is not so much. There's not so much like I'm looking into this technology, or I'm trying to figure out this general problem. I need to whatever. Those kinds of discussions are going to be less, and it'll be kind of more things that we would expect. Like I said, fixing bugs. And I'm not sure if a podcast is like the most interesting place to talk about specifics of the way a bug worked. There's probably more interesting ways to put out, like information about that stuff, whether it be GitHub or whatever. Mm-hmm. So anyway, my point is we're going to start making kind of more like overview and tutorial-y type videos, just info about the system overall and technical components, and kind of a more...
Do we freeze? We
might have frozen. Doing it again, bringing back video. Okay, anyway, video is back. I think we're good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, video is back. We're doing videos. That's what we're going to be doing. So, yeah, like I was going to say, is kind of putting more attention and like time into our video content, and kind of having more of just like a more put together thing there. I think the podcast is like, it still has its place, but it just won't be as active, like I said. So we'll do every month, and in that time we'll kind of talk about the other content that we made and kind of all that stuff. And at some point in the future, like I said, July 1st, kind of sending this out there and seeing what happens. And like I said before, I'm going to continue to use this as like a toy for myself and my family, because I think this is like cool.
Mm-hmm.
But if other people start to do the same thing and take interest in it, and maybe there's more of like an active community, I'm more than willing to, like pick this back up, because that would be the focus of the podcast.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's like, well, let's just consolidate some stuff. So anyway, that's that thing. I have a lot more Homegames changes I wanted to talk about, but that was just one thing about this whole thing that we do.
Yeah, this is the arc where Joseph and I don't like each other. We can only be in a room once a month. No, yeah, it makes sense.
Totally. Also, I'm going to keep talking, but I am currently checking to make sure that the video that we have is being saved, so we don't lose it, because I do love Windows. It's very good to me. Okay, yeah. Okay, we have a video. We're all good.
Okay, watching Joseph click through the sheer amount of drives he has.
My like 9 external drives.
It's like GH all the way up to like Q.
Yeah, I got a P drive, dude. What the fuck is wrong with me?
What the fuck? So it's C, dog. C is the first drive.
I have some like, I don't know, dude. I'm such a... some of the things on my hard drive, like the photos I have and whatever, are like the most valuable things to me. So like, of course, I just have all this crazy shit because I'm a weirdo, but I'd rather store it myself than Amazon.
This man's a savage. But I was going to ask you, do you know why it starts at C instead of A?
I really don't. Must just be like a Windows convention.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway. Home game stuff. What you got, bud?
Home game stuff. So besides the things I have mentioned, I just have a bunch of features, kind of miscellaneous stuff here and there. Like I mentioned last episode, I was working on HomePad, which was our gamepad mapping tool stuff. And basically I have finished that, and it is at a point where HomePad is this very simple, short library. It's 136 lines in like the main logic. All it does is it maps certain gamepads that you would connect to a browser, like a PS4 controller, Xbox controller, whatever, and then kind of using the metadata of what your controller tells your browser when it connects to it, will figure out what kind of controller it is based off of the configurations it has, and then map inputs from that controller to a consistent input for home games. So like a face button one, like face 1, face 2, for example, would be consistently mapped by HomePad from any kind of arbitrary controller that you have. You can define a mapping, ideally in JSON, but at the moment it's a JS file with just simple key values, to say like this maps to this maps to this in this controller. You can obviously change that for different controllers and make your your PS4 behave differently if you just want to change your config. There's also dead zone support. So basically, like your sticks, your analog sticks, they aren't really at the 0-0 center position of, people understand how dead zones work. But if you don't, like me building this made me realize how they really work. Your sticks sitting in the center of your controller aren't really at the exact center. They're slightly offset because they're like physical things that are sitting on like a rolly ball. So they're not really perfect. And so we basically want a way to ignore all input within a certain range. And that's just, again, a simple config. So like in the PS4 controller config, the dead zone is like 8%. So you can move it 8% in any direction in the XY on either stick, and it'll just not pick it up. But the second you move out of there, then you start to pick it up, and kind of makes it feel a little bit more correct. Otherwise, you're just drifting all the time. So that's that one thing, or that's one thing. Like I said, I only support PS4 controllers. I can add more configs that are pretty easily. Like they're just like 20 lines of whatever. I just haven't tested with my other controllers yet. So, like I said, list of things. I'll get to that eventually. Whatever. This next one on my list is pretty fucking interesting. What?
So I did one question on the Homegames, the HomePad stuff. Yeah. That is just an open repo that people can make PRs into, right? So if somebody has like a control that we don't have access to and they want to add it in, they can.
Oh, totally, yeah. Homegames.io is our GitHub organization, and the repo is HomePad. So if you have a weird ass controller, if you want to add a mapping for like a Guitar Hero controller or whatever, feel free to add it yourself. And
the Donkey Congo.
Yeah, you have the bongo drums. Alex would do that for sure. He hasn't made a commit in like over 4 years, but he would add that. That's the last thing on. Oh, unless you had anything else
on HomePad. Question.
Okay, so I have something pretty interesting. I'll save this next thing for last. I want to go back to it last. I brought back spectators. So. Like I mentioned before we had this idea of like public games and whatever stuff, like probably a year or two ago, I had this drop in, drop out spectator feature where you could join a game and then there would be a little button that says like, hey, do you want to spectate instead of playing? So instead, for a casual person who just is at a party or whatever, who just wants to view, doesn't want to play, you could do that and still get the live view of everything on your phone or whatever. And I removed that when we restructured the game session, Homegames dashboard, Homegames roots spaghetti that we had at the time. I untangled that and removed spectators in the process, but brought it back.
Hey.
It's a little buggy in the sense that it doesn't work at all.
No, that's not true. Spectator mode works. Leaving spectator mode doesn't work.
Yeah. So when you join, you're by default playing. When you click spectate, you become a spectator. You drop out of the game as a player. You drop in as a spectator. I just figured out what it is. I just figured out what the bug is. It's stupid. I'll fix it. But when you click join again as a spectator, it doesn't work. And it's because we specifically ignore all input when you're a spectator, because when you're a spectator, we don't fucking care what you're clicking on. You're a spectator. So
I told you that, dude.
You said it in a way that was technically true by mistake. How about that? Fuck you.
It sounds like you can't click the button because you're now a spectator, and you're like, no, that's not it.
It's a whole thing, but you're kind of right. Yes, I added some shit on top of it later that is actually the problem. But yes, you're right. You're right. Okay. But yeah, so basically, once you spectate, you can't drop back in to join. But that's a quick fix, hopefully. So nice. That's that. It is back and it is working. Speaking of public game stuff, I got public games working, kind of. Also buggy. This is the buggiest shit we have. So public games, basically when you join a game, if you have a config value set to true for public games and you're running your home game server, by default it's off, but you can opt in to make your games public. So when you create a game session outside of the dashboard is special, but when you're from the dashboard, you say, I want to play this game, create a session, you'll go obviously play the game, but then in the frame of Homegames, it'll say homegames.link and then a code, a 4-digit code. You go to homegames.link, and just like before, if you're running a server on the same network that you're accessing homegames.link, or on the device that you're accessing homegames.link from, it'll automatically redirect you and you're just playing without doing anything. But if not, it'll say, okay, well, I know there's nothing on your network, so I'm going to redirect you to public.homegames.link, which was then going to ask you for a code. The code just gives you access to a game server, and then people can play over the internet with you or spectate. Same behavior as running locally for the most part. There's like one quirk about names when you're a spectator. That's like a bug. So anyway, yeah, same behavior. It works. It's pretty fast. Like I said, that stuff in the previous episode about how like basically stale data getting delivered to clients because of the extra network hop. I have a idea for that, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, it's still not as fast as it could be, but it's fast enough to be like pretty workable for most applications in home games, except for when it doesn't work, which was every single time I tried to show you just now before the podcast. But when there's no one else in the room, the shit works perfectly. It's amazing. but yeah, public games are working. They're just buggy. So yeah, but like fixing bugs is one of the major things I'm going to be doing for the next, for like 6 months. The whole time is going to be fixing bugs, just getting it ready for release. Any questions on any of that stuff that I've mentioned so far?
No.
Okay. So
it's all cool though.
So next, font support. So I think I've mentioned on the podcast maybe it was off the podcast, but the games and applications that you can build in home games at the moment feel very off. A lot of it is because everything is like blocky and like weirdly placed and designed by a computer dude. He's like not a designer. And so it just looks kind of funky, but a big part of it I noticed or realized or whatever was the fonts. Like this one standard default font, just like this sans serif font that we have on the web client. Not everything applies to that font. Sometimes you need a little pizzazz. Sometimes you need a little bit of oomph.
Yeah.
So
wingdings.
Yeah, you need wingdings. So I don't really know how fonts work. I didn't know how fonts work, like font files and stuff. I know that there are built-in ones to the browser, so I can just say like a general type of font, like for example sans serif, or I can give a specific name, but the browser might not have support for it, so then you give fallbacks. It's a whole fucking thing. I don't know how fonts work, but I do know that you can have a font file. So I googled open source font files, and I found ODT files, I think is what they are, and then another file format.
Are you WIF? Maybe?
Probably.
TIFF?
The TIFF is an image, I thought.
Then a W.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But I was just trying to figure out the best way to incorporate fonts, thinking maybe we have preset fonts, but then that doesn't work because, again, like I said before, a browser might not support whatever font, so you kind of need the asset, you need the file. So we already had this asset system for images and for audio, so I figured I would try to look into adding fonts as a new type, and that worked pretty well. You basically just take your font file, upload it like you would anything else. You give it a name in your metadata for your game. So you say like, this is my font. Here's where it's at, the resource location, asset ID, and then here's the name. So the name is test font. And then when I have a text node, I can specify a font optionally, referring to it by name. Mm. So when someone connects to a home game server, the home game server says, hey, I have a custom font, sends the data to the client stores it locally with that name, so then other texts can reference it and use that font. It works pretty well. I didn't really have to fuck anything up for it. It just like works.
Nice.
So that was exciting, and I think stuff looks better. Just with that one test that I have with like a cool font, I think it looks a lot spicier. It looks a lot more like lively, so that's a good sign. Hopefully more kind of small tweaks to the way that things can look in the future. But yeah. So, any questions on fonts before I go to offline mode?
No, I think it's funny that it's such a small thing, but it adds stuff to how a game looks and feels.
I think I might have said this before too on this thing, but when I was younger, I would look at designers and think, like, basically I was an asshole and I didn't really respect designers because it's so fluffy and abstract the way that you think. And we're building a product and fuck your colors, you know what I mean? But realizing how it's incredibly significant it is, because like your entire product is consumed in this. Yeah, it is your design. It is the way it looks is your thing. So yeah, I don't know. Like we would really benefit from having a designer friend who wants to put in a bunch of time to this thing to help me out, so I don't need to like fucking read baby's first design book and hope for the best.
So we would really, or we are really?
We would really benefit from some.
We would really. I don't have a designer friend.
I know some designer people, but I don't. It'd be weird if I was like, "Hey, can you like work for me for free?"
You'll get exposure.
Yeah, dude, I'd never want to be one of those. And and the only reason it would be for free is because I literally don't know how to pay somebody for this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is that a business expense? I don't know. I don't know anything.
It's a good question. I don't know.
I have no idea. I was thinking too, it'd be cool to do like when we like post to Reddit and like launch and whatever, and we say, oh, we'll do a contest. Winner gets like $100, and it's like, well, fuck. There's like legal restrictions around contests, especially there's like all this shit around it, and yeah, dude, I don't want to get involved in any of that.
Whoever wins, make a Patreon, and we'll donate $100 to your Patreon.
Or like, I was seriously thinking about this in the shower. I was like, how would we get around? Like, how would we commit fraud on our podcast, like, legally? I was like, well, maybe I could say, like, maybe if you have the best game, maybe you can send us your your Ethereum address or, like, your Bitcoin address. So, like, maybe you get $100 there. Like, you know, like this implication.
Oh, the implication. It's like the whitest kids you know.
Yeah.
Where, like, you absolutely cannot say, like, and then a bunch of stuff that you can't say.
Yeah, like, you cannot say I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. That one in particular is the one that I think about. I'm not going to say it, but...
I was going to say it, and I was like, fuck, we're being recorded.
Yeah, we are being recorded. We're going to put this online.
Yeah. But yeah, what were we talking about? Offline mode? Anything else before I go to the offline mode?
No.
Okay. Offline mode. So like I was saying earlier, when we have centralized services that the game that Homegames requires to run, it kind of defeats the entire purpose of us making this open source and sharing the info and the code and whatever, all this shit. It kind of defeats the purpose. So in the case where all of our servers are down, I want it so that any of our Homegames clients that exist or Homegames builds out there in the world can still run without being able to talk to any of our services. Just with whatever assets they have locally, you can still add code to it and whatever. Locally, no internet. You have a router with no access to the internet. Maybe you don't pay for internet, but you have a router or whatever the fuck you do with your life. I don't know. Whatever people have set up at home.
Yeah. If
you don't have internet, you can play Homegames. It's like a big thing for me. Or if our shit's down, you can play Homegames. So I went through. I have a separate router, which I've mentioned before on this podcast, but I have a separate router that has no access to the internet that I use to test Homegames offline, which I hadn't done in like a year. So I went back to it after adding like a bunch of but a bunch of stuff happened with like our landlord and asset servers and stuff this year. So, yeah, basically just like trying to run the Homegames server without access to those things, and it just crashed, like hard crash, because we didn't have any error handling. It would just be like, oh, I don't know how to talk to that website. There's no catch here on this error, so the server will just crash out. Mm-hmm. So I added some better error handling for us to handle that case, and then when we handle that case, some good fallbacks. So like, for example, if you go to the search box and you type in, you look for a game today, it'll just search.homegames.io or whatever the website is for it, the API is. And if it can't hit that service, well, not only does search not work, your whole shit crashes. Now the fix is we'll also search your local games that you have stored based on the metadata that we know about them locally. And if available, we'll search the search thing. But like, we don't crash in either if we can't talk to it. And stuff like downloading assets. Like if you have a game stored locally and it references an asset that we don't have locally, like say, for example, you have an image that you don't have on the machine. When you go to play that game offline and you don't have the asset won't load. The game will run, it just won't load.
Okay.
Which to me is a pretty reasonable fallback if you don't have the asset. It's kind of like what games do where it just says like asset not available. It's got like a placeholder asset.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We just have nothing, which, whatever, makes it harder to see. But I added a way for you to download all assets before you do that. So like if you have a bunch of games and you don't have the assets downloaded, in the settings modal on the dashboard, you can click download all assets. You'll get all the games locally. You can disconnect your PC or your whatever, and you'll still have access to all the games. Yeah, a whole lot of stuff on that. But yeah, it works. It, like I said, it's still not the best experience. Like, we do handle errors and we don't crash out, but it's not super obvious when something isn't working. We just like silently handle it. So that's one thing that can be better. But yeah, offline mode works. Any questions on that?
Nice. No, nice. I like that.
Yeah, it's important to me. I don't trust the internet. Never have, never will.
That's fair.
Next thing before I go on to some other stuff. So settings modal. This one's pretty minor, but before it, there's like a little name that we auto generate for you at the top of the screen. You can click that little name and you get your settings modal, which has, you can change your name, you can turn your sound on or off, and you can download assets, like I said before. That's pretty much it. But now I made it so there's a little list of all the players in your current session, kind of like you would expect in any modern game, like show me the players that are in this thing with me. Mm-hmm. So you get that on your settings modal. In any game, it'll show you who's in that thing with you, and it'll show you the amount of spectators in the game. So if you have like 100 spectators, we don't want to show spectator 100 times. We just show a count. But for players, those are actual people with real names. Well, spectators are actual people too, but whatever. They don't matter in this context. So like it's just players, and then we also have a little bit of info about the game. So like what game is this? What version of Squish is it on? And who is the author? It would be cool if we added debug info. So like I have a question here too. Like what would the debug info be? But for example, my performance. How many frames have I gotten over the past N amount of time? If there's any errors that have happened in the session, maybe you can show them in the thing, or like, I don't know, other certain kind of like diagnostic info, things that I find myself having to kind of poke into the code or like look into the metadata for. Those things we could easily pull out into the UI. So things like that. But just, I think having a debug menu is fun because, you know how like on Android to access certain features, like to change like animation speed, you have to become a developer by hitting settings like 12 times or whatever.
Yeah.
That little like entry into computer shit, even if you're not a computer person, might be fun for you.
Yeah.
So like just being able to see debug info, I think would be fucking cool. What I also think would be cool, this is me being classic me, but it'd be really fucking cool if we had an option which was like start recording, or like you know how Xbox or PlayStation has like record the last 30 seconds, because we already have a record of every single frame of the game being sent. All you need to do is persist it. And if you say like, I want that data, you don't have to throw it away. You just keep it, store it into a file, a like relatively human readable file, because it's a list of lists of numbers.
Yeah.
Every frame.
Yeah.
And then you can load that into like a Homegames viewer, and it could literally just play the entire state of the game back.
Yeah.
Like a deep replay with all the metadata, not just visual, not just like video frames, but like we have all this fucking data in the frames.
Like Trackmania does.
Yeah, we talked about this before. Like with the
shit. Okay.
I think we have, because you referenced Trackmania replays before on this, but I think it'd be so fucking cool. Again, not for the feature, but just because I want to build that. It sounds so fucking cool.
Yeah.
To have a video that can be like 900 bytes. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like we build the player for. I don't know. It's like super cool.
It would be super dope.
So anyway, that's one thing I think would be cool. But yeah, settings modal redesign, just a little bit more info in there. I think we can visually make it look better, because I really like that thing, that like intangible feeling of a good UI. Like I can't figure it out, and I can't design that because I don't even know what it is. Yeah. But I could see it when I see it, and I know that my shit is not that. So whatever, it is what it is.
Fair. I went to school for it. We don't have any training on it.
Yeah. But yeah, when I see like really well designed things, I'm impressed these days, instead of being like, oh, fuck you, you know?
Oh, these colors. Like, oh, no, actually, like, those colors were probably chosen specifically.
Right. Yeah, I'm mixing like purple and green over here like a fucking idiot, you know?
It's a low contrast.
Yeah.
Low contrast users are gonna die.
Mr. Accessibility over here with all of your knowledge of this shit, dude. I don't know anything.
Sometimes work's cool. You get to work with a bunch of people you've never thought about working with before. You've thought about them before. Working with an organization of people who are blind or very close to it, like legally blind or whatever the term is. It's really interesting when they like look at a website and they're just like, we can't use this, or it's really like when they look at a website and they're like, this is actually just like difficult for us to use.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, but this website's so pretty, and it's like, yeah, but like doesn't function well for us. So that kind of stuff I think is interesting now. I've become more interested in it, I guess. because I've been exposed to the thought process behind it.
It'll be helpful at some point when we're kind of putting finishing UI touches. Like, even though you're not a designer, just being like, hey, this looks like shit. You know, like a little bit of that input would be nice.
Red and blue is fine, but green and purple, maybe.
Yeah. It's giving monster.
It's giving big Joker energy. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, that is Joker colors, yeah. Okay, so the next set of things that I have is what's next. So, like I mentioned, I want to get this thing, when I say out the door, I mean a signed binary build available online with like a stable version of every feature that we want to release, which is pretty much everything that we have. Mm-hmm. July 1st. By July 1st. And so to get there, I need to fix bugs. There's a lot of bugs. Just poking around and doing any kind of basic testing, you will find bugs. I need to fix those bugs. In the process, I will refactor things because most of the bugs that I have come from me sloppily copying and pasting code, keeping variable references that are no longer relevant, and like maintaining them and making like really weird, shitty code design things, and I don't even know why, because I just keep like whatever. So there will be some structural changes with that go with like bug fixes, but when I kind of bundle it all up into a final commit for a thing, I will also try to maybe add a little bit of TypeScript stuff in there. Like I'll do incremental changes. Like I won't do all this in one go, but like I said, I'm going to be moving from piece to piece, just fixing stuff and getting stuff better. And I don't really have a process for that. It's kind of just throwing myself at Homegames and seeing what fucks up.
Yeah, I mean, I can start to go through stuff with TypeScript again. I found that it was easiest to work from like bottom up, so like files that don't need anything.
Yeah.
And then you do those ones first, and then you do the files that rely on those files, and then you do the files that rely on those files, and then eventually you can get to like all of these files have been TypeScriptified, basically. Because if you try to do it the other way, you end up going down like these long rabbit holes of like I have to update like 4 files or something like that.
You're doing a DFS, right? Depth first search.
Oh yeah.
Of your dependency graph.
Yeah. That's exactly what you're doing.
I was like, am I stupid? Like the way you're looking at me, am I dumb?
I for whatever reason, when you said that, I was thinking of a finite automata, and I was like, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but maybe. And then you said depth first search, and I was like, we're coming on to something. And then anyway, that's what that look was for. I was lost in the wrong corner of the room, basically.
But it makes sense. Like if you start at the main, you're just gonna have like 100 more errors, and each of those is gonna have 100 more errors until you hit the bottom. But you've done everything at that point. It's like silly.
Yeah. So it also plays nice with how TypeScript works in terms of like updating TypeScript. Where like TypeScript, you can have files in JavaScript or in TypeScript. It's fine. So if you start the bottom files and that doesn't rely on anything else, you can leave everything above it in JavaScript and it's fine. Mm-hmm. But then you have like those files, then those other files are going to use stuff out of there, and they'll have type safety then like instantly, and it's kind of nice. Yeah, that makes sense. That will happen at some point. Like I said, I don't really have like a sequential plan to do this stuff. I just imagine we'll incrementally make changes and move stuff over as we do, and kind of give stuff like our final stamp to say ship it. Code reviews will be a part of that. Hey. So then the next bullet point I have, I'm almost done, I promise, is I need to build good automated testing. So I don't have a lot of trust in our system, and to be honest, I'm shocked every time I run it and it just works. The most recent time I tried game publishing, my mouth was agape with the fact that it even like took my request, published a build, and it all just worked. Yeah. So I don't think we're in shambles, stability wise. I just think we don't have insight. If it were in shambles, we don't know. Yeah. Without poking at it manually, which is a huge time sink. So having the ability to say, just like, here's an automated test suite that's pretty thorough. We can test this stuff end to end. Like we can test that, old games with old versions of Squish continue to work on new versions, and given this state, do you get this kind of visual output? Like if I give you this game input and I get the resulting frame, this pixel, this point should be red.
Is it red? Kind of stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to get like a handle on every individual piece, but then also having kind of an integration test, like maybe one full end-to-end real production integration test every time that we are deploying or whatever. Like, take this game, publish this game, download this game, approve this game, download this game, reject this game, try to download. Like, having different kind of paths in this whole publishing flow that we have, and then down to rendering. Just having an automated system, I think, is going to be helpful because, you know, in any kind of production thing, if you don't have the ability to test it before you put it into prod, like, that shit's insane. And we have tests. We have individual unit tests for some of the pieces of Homegames. But like I said, for end to end, can my system talk to this system in prod with these changes? Like, we don't have that.
I think the approval step was probably the hardest one.
It's going to be,
to do. But yeah, I agree 100%. Do you think, I don't know if you've worked with like Cypress before as like a
testing infrastructure?
Yeah.
We use it at work, but I don't know much about it.
Oh, okay. I honestly don't even know how well it would work here, because I don't know if you can just be like, Cypress, please click here, drag to here. Like, I don't know what the tooling is for Cypress on that stuff. So there might be a better tool out there, but that's the one that I'm most familiar with when it comes to like end-to-end testing like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking for the basic one, like, basically just make HTTP requests as an authentic. Like,
oh, you think about skipping, just actually like having using the UI to do it?
I'm saying have a test with a config where I can say, this server is here, this server is here, run through it and have all the servers talk to each other. So I can say, does my dev this work with my prod this? Does my prod that work with, you know what I mean? Like, can I interchange, can I keep the rest of the system in this state that it is in production and implement this new change that I made to this subsystem and have it all still work together? That's the part that gives me anxiety. Is if I make a change in Homegames core, or if I make a change in Squish, and I submit a build to HomeDome to publish that game, does it still work if I like make a breaking change in Squish? I don't know what the fuck, right? Like, I don't know what happens, because I wrote it like forever ago and it kind of works, but like, I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, just better testing. We need better testing, and that'll come along with us fixing things, and it'll help us fix things and stuff like that. Signing builds. We got to sign builds. Mentioned it 100 times. Here's the 101st. We need to sign our builds before people trust us.
Yeah.
Optional error logging. So I want it to be an opt-in thing, not opt-out. So by default, no logs are sent to us. But it would be nice if people wanted to, if whenever there was an error, we just automatically sent that out to a server that we have so we can see the error.
Yeah.
Just to, you know, for obvious reasons, fix the error.
That's hard to fix errors you don't know exist. It's
exactly. True. And I think, so like the way that it works now is by default, there's a log called Homegames log or hglog.txt. So if people want to, they can like get that file, copy a part of it and paste it and send it to us in the support thing. But as an easier way to do it, just like whenever there's an error, don't worry, it's already sent to us. Thanks.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So I already mentioned videos. We're going to do videos. I think it'd be fun if we did more of the one that I did, make a game with 3 words or whatever in the time frame. I might have mentioned it before, but it'd be fun if we did a competition. Me and you, like, chopped style. Would be pretty fun. I think it's like a weird thing, but at this point, this is the last year before we say, okay, what happens? You know, like, we're going to put this out at what happens. And I think it's just changes in that stuff. And then it just makes more sense to have like more video content and kind of shift the focus of the stuff that we're putting out. That's all. While we're also making this thing better and in the kind of finishing stretch. But when we release this, it'll be over 5 years when I started this shit. It's crazy.
I'll be old enough to drive. No.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for the notes for today. Did you have any questions on any of that stuff or anything to add or anything like that?
I did have one question. So if we're going to be recording once a month, does that mean the next episode would come out? The next podcast episode will come out like 2/3/23?
Let me see.
Or not 2, wouldn't come out 2/3/23. It'd come out like 2/5/23, I guess.
Calendar. Today is the 3rd. We're releasing this on the 4th. So 4 Wednesdays. 1, 2, 3. It would be the 1st. 2/1.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, yeah.
So it's once every 4 weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Not like on the same. It'd be every 4 Wednesdays.
Okay. Every 4 Wednesdays.
Yeah.
All right. That explains.
For a potty.
For a potty.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
124 though. This is 124.
That's a lot.
Technically 125. We always got to mention it. +0.
The zero. The zero factor.
0 index dot length.
0 index dot length.
There was a comma there. I just talk fast.
Oh.
0 index comma dot length is the +1.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool. Well,
You're killing it, buddy.
yeah, man. A lot of shit. But next episode, we will see you in a month, which is crazy. Is that even a real podcast at that point?
We'll see you in 4 weeks.
Yeah. 28 days.
Yeah. It's becoming more of a video essay channel, if you think about it.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you everybody for listening. As always, our music is done by our friend Tynan. He is Nytan on Bandcamp. That is Nytan, Nytan. We are on Twitter, Homegames.io. We have a website, homegames.io. My name is Joseph. This is Yazeed. We didn't mention that before.
No. If you're a designer out there, you want to work for free. You want to work for exposure.
We'll give you nothing.
You can join the podcast.
Yeah. Be in my house with us for free. All right. Thank you everybody for listening. We will see you in a month.